I started a digital marketing company and we are doing a lot of branding and a lot of really big websites and a lot of social media content and advertising.
One of the biggest missteps that I find people take when they are in business or just starting business is really mentality. They use bad labels like I'm a little business, a mom and pop shop, and I don't really I can't think like the rest of those guys. They do things like put we'll be back in 2 weeks on on and close down the business because you know they have a mentality if I don't do it, it can't be done. And that's not really a way to grow business. But also when it comes to the piece of marketing and branding, people won't just walk in the door, especially your family and friends. They'll be the last ones to participate in anything that you do. And they'll be the first ones to say, we knew you could do it all the time. You have to get out of this mentality that if I build it, it'll come. I took a class with digital marketer, and the founder, Ryan Dice, posed the question, how much are you willing to pay for a customer? And never really sat down and thought that through because I had the mindset, well, I'm just a small business. I was happy when got my first ad in the local newspaper, and then see, when I was coming up, we had the yellow books, and you see your name in the yellow books, and those are vanity metrics, and it makes you feel good, right? People have to get out of the mentality that just doing social media posts or having a good following on TikTok is actually going to bring customers into your store. It's a part of the ecosystem, but that's not really a brand concept. And if you're listening today, you don't have to go at it alone because here on Walk in Victory, we like to sit you at the feet of the masters. My name is NaRon Tillman. I am your host. And today's master is Lindy. How are you?
Hi, Naran. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm doing great.
Thank you for coming on. So, if you hear me say to a small business person, what are you considering about your marketing, about your branding? What is your response to that?
Well, let's start with the branding portion. I believe that it depends on what industry you're launching your service or product in, what you're doing, what your business is in. And branding sometimes it's difficult because we can spend all of our waking hours on branding and then we lose the window of launching because we get so stuck in our own heads. But finding branding that resonates with your audience, like really, this now we're going into more the marketing portion. But when you're approaching your branding, really understand who your target clientele is. And while the branding, yes, is all about you, how do you show up against your competitor set? And how do you show up to your ideal clients? The tone, the logo, the color palette, and then moving into all of the marketing materials. Does the full package resonate with your audience?
In business for a long time, and this is the first time in my life that I have a brand guide that I really sat down and thought about the colors and how I wanted to show up in every space. Because when you're doing like a blog post or you're doing something, you just, oh, that's a nice picture, right? If you're not thinking along those lines, because me, I'm thinking about the marketing aspect of it. But I'm glad that you covered the branding aspect. Your perspective and your positioning is unique because you really target small businesses to help them have a big business feel. Explore that, and you can even talk about how did you land in that area.
Yeah, I actually really love how you explain that, like small businesses, making them feel big. That's exactly what we do. So I come from 12 years in New York City, as we were just talking about, and I was working for a lot of larger corporations as a creative director.
Okay.
Eventually, decided to leave corporate and start my own business, and I started a digital marketing company, and we are doing a lot of branding and a lot of really big websites and a lot of social media content and advertising. Eventually, what was happening is we started getting a lot of small and micro-sized business owners and individual business owners, solopreneurs coming to us as referrals, desperate for a website yesterday. They needed to get it up. They didn't know where to turn. They spent $10,000 on a website that wasn't working for them. Their developer disappeared. DIY it, you name it. I've heard it all. And I saw this huge gap in the market to help these individuals get really great websites up and running without the headache, without the high costs, websites that truly are built for their business, to grow their business, set them up for longevity, and then, of course, support them afterwards with other marketing services that they may need as their business evolves. So when I started the company, I took a step back and I did the whole values exercise for myself. And part of the values exercise was, well, what do I love doing? Well, I love helping people. Great. What are you really good at? Well, I'm really good at branding and marketing and graphic design. And we at the time were building these really big websites, and it's like, wow, we're building these really big websites, but we can do them so fast. If we just do a 5-pager, we can really knock these out super quickly because we're so good at storytelling and messaging. And then, of course, we had the design side in the back end. And so part of that values exercise was, well, guess, let's start helping these small business owners. I mean, in the days of the Amazon yellow button, why can't business owners get really professional websites up and running, like that work for their business with a reliable company that's built specifically for a small business. So that's how Up in a Day was born, in short. And now we have been around for about, so we're going on our 7th year. And what we stand for is to really educate and provide ROI to every client that we work with, because I've been there. I also grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. And so I've seen the struggles of small businesses. And, when you start a company, it is scary. It is scary, especially if you're not on the creative side, but you have a big idea. And that's beautiful. If you start with that big idea and then just work incrementally backwards from there, that's exactly what I did. I hung on to my digital marketing company while I was building the processes for Up in a Day, because I knew with Up in a Day, it had to be a company that was a productized service. That was the best way for us to deliver high quality websites and marketing services while at the same time having a fast turnaround.
And I like the name, like you could tell it is well thought out, up in the day, right? Because you're delivering through the name. Let's explore that when we talk about branding and marketing. How important is wrestling with the name? Have you ever had a client where you say they come in, they have a great idea, but they named it after their grandma, or like, nobody wants to hear Tessie Mae, right?
Exactly. Exactly that. And, with that being said, I hear that question all the time. "Lindy, should I call the company my name, or should I come up with, a general, like, business name for it?" And I think that you should really think about how big you wanna grow, right? I mean, there are obviously brand names that are, the individual's name, like Chanel, for example, Tommy Hilfiger, but, let's be realistic and think about how you wanna represent yourself and how big your team's going to be.
Yeah, and it's important. Like for me, the name of my started off in music because I did music stuff, and now it's podcast. don't brand matter. And I'm talking because for my answer, the web, everything. Talk, oh, you should do NaRonTillman.com. I said, I don't want to do NaRonTillman.com because I'm going to grow past NaRon Tillman. When I bring on another podcast or when I'm bringing on other, I'm talking to a client, they're going to understand that, yeah, I'm the face of the brand, but one day I won't be the face of the brand. Someone else could be there and they're going to be saying, are you NaRon Tillman? so, uh, so that's important. Now, besides the name, what is the second thing I think about in terms of
Yes, actually, can you repeat that? I'm sorry,
oh,
there was a little bit of a delay. The
okay, says
second,
the second thing that we should consider when we think about branding, besides the name.
oh, your logo and your color palette. And
Mm.
brand visuals. If you are face of the brand, by all means, please go get a great headshot done. And don't forget to get headshots of you doing things. If you're offering a service, maybe you're walking with your computer or you're sitting at a desk or, content that you can use on your social media is key. Same with your team, same thing. Your color palette is also everything because when you're creating the content for your website and all of your social media, obviously, that color palette needs to come across in every touch point that you have because that's brand awareness. That's growth. That's opportunity for people to remember you. Logo, obviously, depending on what you do and what you offer, and investing in, a branding package could be very valuable to you in the long run. So if you have a clear vision of what your business is going to be, how it's going to operate, and you are ready to launch it, by all means, invest in a branding package. I think you would agree. Like you will have so much to work with.
Yeah, so explain. Let's walk through what a branding package looks like, and how in the era of AI, like that investment price may not be as high as it used to be.
Yes, no, certainly so, for sure. I would say start with, well, we can focus on service-based businesses.
Hmm.
Let's start with the logo.
Hmm.
Get the logo down, get that nailed. And then with the logo, you'll have your fonts. So you'll have your font package. You'll have your color palettes, your primary, secondary, tertiaries, and then you'll have your brand visuals. So this could be photos of you, stock photos that you invest in, really good stock photos that maybe are manipulated in an AI. Maybe they have a color overlay, or your logo is somewhere, you know, mixed in as a watermark, for example. So licensing imagery that represents you and your brand. And then, of course, I mean, we could talk about LinkedIn banners, how you show up on Instagram and Facebook, and everything just is very cohesive. It doesn't have to be exactly looking at, not every platform should look exactly like the other platform. It should have your brand, your logo, your fonts, and your color palette, but resonate with the audience in that platform. You're muted.
This thing's working on its own. E- Even with my book that's coming out, and I see I'm delayed now. My book that's coming out, I that we have for the podcast and even the other podcasts that we producing is going to have similar feel to it that I'm hosting, just so that it can although it stands alone, it can still, if a person was to see it, they'll subconsciously, like, I know that brand, I know that feeling. Can we talk about invisible brand? Because most times people understand the visible brand. And the visible is what you talked about, the color, the the look, and all of those things. But those things give off what we call an invisible brand feel, and that's how it makes you feel when you see the color. Miami Dolphins jersey. I feel bad, right? I'm a Jet fan.
Uh-huh. Okay. Tell us more.
so so let's talk about that part in branding, and how do you get your customer to understand the feeling of a brand.
Oh, that's such a great topic. Well, we can start, with up in a day. Up in a day is green. Why
Mm,
green? Well, it's like a grass green. Green is fresh. Green is money. Green is opportunity. Green is different. We're not navy blue. We're not royal blue. We wanted to enter the marketplace differently. We're
mm,
not too SaaS, right? We're not a SaaS product. We're kind of our own entity. And you're right, color, it evokes feeling, right? Maybe you don't want to come across too cheap. Turquoise, let's talk about dolphins. I mean, in my opinion, if that turquoise feels like cheap to me, where everyone has their own relationship with color, but red, let's talk about red. Red is action, red is heat, red is now, red is abrupt. It is stop, but it could also work well for your brand if what you offer surrounds itself in that kind of feeling. So it's like the feeling of what you give as a brand, your tone of your voice, your brand voice, how you, and what I mean by that is how you come across in your social medias. If you have a podcast, like what is the tone of your brand? And does the color represent the tone
mm,
and the feeling that you want someone to have when they see your brand for the first time? Green also, as an example of up in a day, memorable.
yeah,
That's why we chose something that was different.
yeah. And it's funny because I was watching the Buffalo Bills play the New England Patriots last week, and it took me 5 minutes to get over the fact that Buffalo had on these white and silver uniforms. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
going on here? And my wife was like, why do you keep complaining about the uniforms? I'm like, because that's not like, see, that's the color. I'm showing her the colors in the stands. That's the color that they should have on, that blue and that red. I felt like it
Yeah,
was the Raiders playing, and they lost. I don't
they
know.
did. I saw that game and I was questioning the same thing. And the Dolphins the previous week wore like this dark navy, like almost like so dark it almost looked like a black, and they only had a little bit of the turquoise, and I'm thinking that's the Dolphins. Like, what's
No,
going on here? It felt
and
so weird. It did like the Raiders.
yeah, and they lost just like the Raiders. They played like the
They did.
Raiders.
Yeah.
I think sometimes let's talk about that because that's a fascinating topic and one that I never even thought about approaching. When we can get too smart for our britches, right? When we take for granted, like we just need to change something. J.C. Penney went through that, right? The CEO tried to change J.C. Penney into a high end Neiman Marcus. Like, it's how come it can't work? Or it can work, but
You are establishing your brand presence the moment you launch. It's okay to pivot, but if you start getting a customer base, you're fulfilling that customer base with a certain product, service for a certain price point in a certain way. And so people start to expect it. People start to see you as that, whatever that price point is, because you become that, because that is what you offer. If you were to completely pivot and increase and 10 times your price or even lower your price, the brand trust I think that people have will be lost. They will get
mm,
confused and they will question what you offer and they may leave. So that's always a scary route to take. However, That doesn't necessarily, like you said, it doesn't, that's not for everybody. For some brands, it could work. Some brands start and they just are not moving the needle. They're not hitting the mark. They're not resonating with the audience that they want to, in which case they would pivot and they would change their price point and how they show up. And in those cases, it could work quite well.
Yeah, I'm in the mind of the Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic. They understood that yes, I could just stay the Gap and say, but over there we have higher end stuff, or I can just say, let's get a Banana Republic and just offer our high end stuff over there. Let's get an Old Navy and hit that market for the low end stuff, and then let's get an Aeropostale, which is a more urban feel, but when you walk in the store, you're thinking you're walking into Aeropostale. You don't realize that you're walking into another Gap, right?
Right.
when you begin to really find your groove, like kind of what you did, you had the marketing agency, and you saw this hole in the market. You could have said, we're gonna keep the same name because I don't feel like building again, right? But you didn't. Explain why.
Oh, that, yeah, I love that question because the name just didn't resonate with what we did. Our, like you said earlier, Up in a Day says everything. It says exactly the promise that we offer. And my other company was just called Lino Creative, which sounds like every other agency.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create something new to market. And if it's a new product, it is crucial that the name is unique as your offering, in my opinion. Because if I had called what Up in a Day is today, Lino Creative, we make fast websites, for example, for awesome people, like, okay, Lino Creative, another agency. But Up in a Day, you're kind of like, oh, okay, Up in a Day. It rings a bell. It sticks with you.
Yeah, it's like
So your name is everything.
yeah, like Federal Express. But some people don't have, because when we think about starting over again, it's like, oh, I gotta start over again. I gotta do everything that you did to start the business while you kept the other one up and going. What gave you the courage to not just pivot, to halt, restart? What is it about you that you bring to your team and to your personal brand that gives you that kind of chutzpah? And then how did your team respond when you said this is it?
I would say I bring empathy, understanding, and patience. And also, I come from many leadership roles in my corporate past, and I wanted to create a company whose values instituted fun, always have fun. So every staff member that comes on board to Up in a Day, the first thing that we talk about are the company values. And if I feel that they align with those company values, then they could be a good fit for us. So keeping our company values always fresh in the minds of our employees, it keeps everybody aligned and everybody working towards that same goal.
Yeah. Last one, and then we'll get you out of here. How important in branding, you work in a very specific market for not just small businesses, but like the solopreneur, the coaching, and all that stuff. How important, when we think about everything that we discussed, the personality of the leader. How do we get the personality of the leader to the people? Like I can be a bland person, right? But I still need to. You still have to figure out a way to let that resonate so that the employees can understand the new brand identity. Besides colors and besides logos and all those things really matter, let's talk about the individual's personality and how we get that to come.
Yeah, that's another great question. My first answer is through messaging, unique
Mm.
messaging. Bring your brand voice to life through your messaging to your audience. And with the employees, just c- communication is everything. And how I speak to them and the cadence and the tone that I bring, hopefully is as good as I can be, even on the most frustrating days, is always a two-way street. Like it's bringing a certain amount of positivity to every situation and just allowing everyone to have a voice. And again, I think communication is everything. And then really with our back to our clients, you know, our I do truly believe that the founder, the owner, you who created your brand, that comes out in your service or product. It just is because it's uniquely you and you made it. And I think that is what people feel when they see or experience your product or service for the first time.
Well, there you have it, everybody. I told you that we sit you at the feet of the masters. We're not sitting down talking to novice, trying to figure out, I don't know, I just got started last week and I'm just podcasting because my coach told me to podcast. We only want to have the biggest and best conversations because our identity when we started this podcast was to get information to people that wouldn't necessarily be able to hire a coach. And I am having conversations as if you were sitting there with a coach. Lindy is a part of our Walk in Victory family now. We don't ask you for Cash Apps, Venmos, or any of those things, but we do ask you for something very specific. We ask that you would follow our guest. All of her information is in the description. That you hit like, subscribe, and share because your likes, your subscriptions, your shares, and your comments, if you're listening on a platform that you can leave a comment, helps us go a long way. Also, follow us on social media, Walk in Victory, and go to our website, walkinvictory.me. We're going to be blogging from there right now. I only blog on LinkedIn, but we're going to be blogging from the website. The book links and everything is going to be on the website. We're building, and it's because of your support, and I really, really thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Don't walk with your head down. Don't walk making excuses. Together, we walk in victory. Peace.
You are so good.
Thank you. I've been public speaking since I was a little boy.